The vast blackness of space lay between two fleets, the looming armada of the Sorath Imperium, each warship gleaming like a shard of night, and a lone human vessel, battered but unbowed. Captain Reed Morgan stood on the bridge of the Aurora, fingertips brushing the cool metal rail as he stared at the distant enemy. His jaw was tight, chin lifted by stubborn pride. Behind him, his crew, 19 souls drawn from every corner of Earth, readied themselves for a fight they were not meant to win. For decades, humanity had kept its head down. When the Sorath had first surveyed human worlds, they dismissed them as primitive. They sent diplomats who returned shaken. They sent scholars who never returned at all. And finally, they sent a challenge. A single human ship, any ship, must face one of theirs in honest battle. If humanity surrendered without a fight, they would be left in peace. If they refused, all human colonies would be conquered, their people enslaved. Most human leaders had bowed to fear. The United Earth Council had chosen compliance. Every battle, cruiser, every transport ship had been grounded or surrendered. Only the Aurora, a refitted freighter hastily armed with scavenged cannons and outdated shields, remained free. Its crew had volunteered when they heard of the mandate. No one was certain why they fought, only that they could not allow the yoke of alien rule. Lieutenant Maya Flores, the Aurora's chief tactical officer, tapped a sequence on her console. "Shields at 40%, she reported, her voice steady even as the hum of the Sorath engines reached a low roar. "Enemy closing to attack. Range in 2 minutes. Reed turned. "Any word from Earth Command?" "No transmission since we left orbit. They're silent." He frowned. They never go silent. Below decks, the crew felt the weight of dread. Engineer Jake Larson worked at the power regulator, sweat slicking his brow as he rerouted auxiliary generators to support the shields. In medbay, Nurse Nina Patel checked the sedatives, ready for the worst. Weapons Officer Marcus Ellison ran diagnostics on the railguns, each check echoing like a drumbeat in the narrow corridor. Back on the bridge, Reed gave a slow nod. "Very well. We fight." Ava Kim, the Aurora's pilot, guided the ship into a slow barrel roll. The stars arced past the viewport, and for a heartbeat, Reed imagined they were dancing rather than preparing for death. Then the first pulse cannon blast skyrocketed toward them, a violet bolt that scored the Aurora's port side. Sparks erupted, alarms blared, and the hull shuddered as if slapped by a giant hand. "Report," Reed barked. "Shields down to 20%, Maya replied. "Hull breach in Section C4. Repair teams are en route." Reed exhaled, tension draining from his shoulders, only to be replaced by fierce resolve. "Return fire." On the targeting console, Marcus keyed in the coordinates and fired the railguns. 2 slugs tore through the darkness, striking the nearest Sorath frigate. It shuddered, then exploded in a blossom of fire that lit the void like a dying star. Below decks, floodlights snapped on in the corridors as backup power kicked in. Jake cursed as he tightened a coolant pipe, metal groaning under stress. "Come on, girl," he muttered to the Aurora. "Hold together." On the bridge, Reed watched the Sorath armada falter for a moment. He seized it. "Ava, bank starboard 20 degrees. Maya, flank attack pattern." Ava's hands danced over the controls. The Aurora twisted through the hail of enemy fire. Emerging behind the second frigate, Maya unleashed a barrage of pulse cannons. The frigate's engines flared, then stuttered into silence as it drifted away, dead in space. Silence reigned for one glorious second, then the rest of the Imperium ships pivoted toward the human ship. Their numbers dwarfed the Aurora. She looked as small as a sparrow challenging an eagle. Reed's voice was calm but fierce. "We live. By the courage of our hearts, not the size of our guns. Fire everything." Crew members at their stations obeyed as if compelled by a single will. The forward cannons roared, missiles streaked out, and energy bolts skittered across the void. The Aurora rocked under the force of every shot, but hit after hit found its mark. Explosions bloomed against the enemy hulls like fireworks. Still, each Sorath ship that fell was replaced by another. The battle line moved inexorably forward. Maya's voice wavered. "Captain, we're down to 2 pulse cannons, shields offline, hull at 10%. Reed's chest tightened. He saw the faces of his crew, pale in the emergency lights, but shining with unspoken courage. "Then we'll make it count," he said softly. "All power to the main cannon. Load the experimental warhead." There was a collective intake of breath. The main cannon was a prototype device never tested under combat conditions. It could strip the hull off a cruiser or blow the ship apart if misfired. Reed weighed the risk. If humanity was to stand a chance, it would need a miracle. He squared his shoulders. "Do it." Below decks, Jake slammed the reactor link into place. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, yet the reactor held. On the bridge, a glow built at the Aurora's bow, bright as a new sun. Maya glanced at Reed. "Ready, Captain." He nodded. "Aim at the lead battleship. On my mark. Fire." In the prolonged silence that followed, every human soul aboard the Aurora felt the weight of the moment. The warhead charged, humming, like a living thing. Reed closed his eyes for a heartbeat and then said, "Now." There was a pulse of light that outshone distant stars. In the dark sea of space, the single human ship unleashed a fury never before seen. The single shot streaked toward the Sorath flagship, and in its path destiny itself hung in the balance. The blinding flare from the Aurora's experimental warhead lingered in everyone's vision as the shockwave rippled through space. On the bridge, red emergency lights cast long shadows over the crew's determined faces. Captain Reed Morgan steadied himself against the console, listening to the distant thunder of collapsing starship hulls. Below, engineer Jake Larson felt the reactor's tremors in his bones. Pipes rattled, panels groaned, but the Aurora held together. He exhaled, then keyed a quick status check. Power was critically low, but the main systems remained online. He sent the report up the comms channel. Reactor stable. Hull integrity at 17%. On the bridge, Maya Flores adjusted her goggles, eyes still burned by the flash. She panned the tactical display. 3 Sorath vessels lay in ruin, debris drifting like ghosts among the stars. Yet beyond them, the rest of the Imperium fleet was closing fast, engines blazing with renewed fury. Reed nodded grimly. "They've seen our strength and they don't care." He tapped a sequence on his console. "All remaining weapons to power. Pilot, evasive maneuver delta." Ava Kim pushed the controls, twisting the ship into a jagged spiral. The Aurora's wounded hull quivered but obeyed. Energy bolts from the enemy sizzled past, leaving streaks of blue fire that licked the hull. Each near miss rattled timber and steel, but the crew met every impact with steadfast resolve. A new voice cut through the tension. Lieutenant Suresh Patel in engineering. "Captain, I'm rerouting life support to critical areas. We can't keep full oxygen for the entire ship." Reed frowned. "Reduce to 50%. Prioritize the bridge and medbay." Life support gauges flickered. If they lost that, no one would survive, even if they won the battle. Below decks, Nurse Nina Patel, no relation, prepared the medbay. She laid out injury kits and checked sedative vials. Her hands moved quickly, covering every surface with clean pads and antiseptic. She knew the next breach could flood the corridors with vacuum. She steeled herself to face what was coming. On the bridge, Marcus Ellison fired the last remaining pulse cannon. The shot struck a Sorath frigate's shield generator, sending showers of sparks across its hull. The enemy ship spun, engines failing, then drifted into a fiery cloud of debris. Reed allowed himself a flicker of hope. "Good shot, Marcus." Maya cut in. "Captain, new bogies appearing on long-range sensors, 2 cruisers and a dreadnought. They've been held back until now." Ava's eyes widened. A dreadnought was a command ship bristling with weapons. One was enough to overwhelm the Aurora. Reed's heart pounded. "They're bringing in heavy support." He turned to his crew. "Listen up, they want to break us. We will not let them." Jake, can we boost shield output with emergency reserves? Jake's voice crackled. I can try, but we risk reactor overload. Reed's jaw set. Do it. Reactor chamber below went silent for a heartbeat, then surged as Jake dumped emergency power into the shields. On the bridge, the shield bar jumped from 0 to 15%. It was barely enough to stop a light pulse, but it was something. Maya grimaced. Shields at 15%, but depleting fast. Reed's gaze swept the viewport. The fury of the Sorath fleet loomed large. 3 cruisers and the dreadnought formed a crescent, their ion cannons charging in unison. The Aurora felt like a candle in a hurricane. He drew a breath. There's no retreat. We'll strike their formation center to sow chaos. Ava, aim for the lead cruiser's engine pylons. Ava's hands flew over the controls. The Aurora lurched forward, diving between debris and enemy fire. Tactical displays blinked warnings as hull breaches flared. But in that dangerous dance, their shot found its mark. The lead cruiser's engines erupted in a crimson bloom, and its thrust, Vector, wrenched it off course. Reed raised his voice above the alarms. All hands, hold steady, we've broken their line, now let's finish it. In the silence that followed, only one thing was certain. Humanity's lone ship still stood, and so did their hope. The Aurora shuddered as its boosters flared, skimming past the crippled cruiser's flaming wreck. Captain Reed Morgan gripped the rail, heart hammering. Around him, the bridge was a blur of flickering lights and urgent voices. The Sorath fleet had faltered, but only just. Their remaining ships realigned into a tighter formation, eager to crush this lone human ship before it could exploit their weakness. Lieutenant Maya Flores recalibrated the targeting array. They've formed a wedge, she observed, voice tight. They'll try to trap us between those cruisers and the dreadnought. Reed nodded. Then we'll draw them out. Ava, plot a course through the debris field ahead. Use it for cover. Ava Kim's fingers moved swiftly. Course laid in. But the field's dense, there's no room for error. Below decks, engineer Jake Larson wrestled with the cooling system. Sparks flew as he replaced a ruptured coolant line. He knew the reactor wouldn't take many more shocks. Each second counted. Reactor pressure rising, he muttered. If we lose the engine, we're dead in space. In medbay, Nurse Nina Patel heard the distant report of a corridor breach. She braced herself. I'm ready, she whispered, loading her kit. She would treat any wounded that made it back, if they made it back. The thought chilled her, but she steeled her resolve. On the bridge, Marcus Ellison watched the tactical screen. The 3 cruisers edged forward, shields bristling with energy. They're coming, he warned. 2 cruisers on my port side, 1 on starboard. Reed took a steadying breath. Then we split their focus. Maya, fire a decoy pulse at the starboard cruiser. Make them think we're weak there. Maya's fingers danced across her console. A bright bolt arced toward the starboard target, striking its shields. The cruiser recoiled, diverting power to its defense grid. Perfect. Reed pressed his comm badge. Ava, now! The Aurora lunged starboard, engines torching. They skidded into the debris field, chunks of shattered hulls and twisted metal tumbling past the viewport. Within the field, the Sorath had to slow, their sensors confused by the floating wreckage. Reed felt the tension ease. Good work, he said quietly. They'll be blind for a moment. Marcus seized the chance, firing torpedoes at the lead cruiser. 2 sleek missiles rocketed out, weaving through debris. One struck dead center. The cruiser's bow tore open in a spray of fire. The second impacted the shield generator, sending arcs of electricity across its hull. The cruiser wrenched sharply, engines screaming before it broke apart. Behind them, the dreadnought roared to life, its weapons locking on. They've prioritized the flagship, Maya noted. Look at those energy readings. Reed's jaw clenched. No time to admire their firepower. Jake, can you give us any extra boost? Jake's voice crackled over the comm. I'm feeding emergency power to the engines, but we risk a meltdown. You need to slip past while you can. Ava nodded. Engines at full burn. Evasive maneuver Gamma. The Aurora darted through a narrow gap between two massive debris boulders. The dreadnought's ion beam lanced out, missing by a hair's breadth, vaporizing one of the tumbling wrecks. Reed closed his eyes briefly. They were taking heavy fire, and still fighting back. "This is it," he said. "We go for their command system. Mute their comms, blind them." Maya adjusted her targeting, locking on the dreadnought's comm array, firing in 3, 2, 1. A pulse cannon shot streaked out, embedding itself in the dreadnought's superstructure. Sparks cascaded, and the ship's lights blinked wildly. Its formation wavered. "Now, Marcus!" Reed shouted. Marcus unleashed a salvo of railgun slugs. Each round hammered into the dreadnought's bridge section, peeling away armor like paper. The dreadnought groaned, its command crew struggling to maintain control. In that critical moment, the Aurora burst free of the debris field. The void opened before them like a stage set for their finest act. The remaining two cruisers hesitated, uncertain whether to pursue or fall back. Reed seized the pause. "This is our chance to show them what humanity can do," he declared. "Full frontal assault. All weapons, fire." Down the corridors, crew members heard the call too. In engineering, Suresh Patel slammed the coolant pumps into overdrive. In medbay, Nina readied herself as the ship rocked with new volleys of fire. Each person understood. They were all part of this moment. On the bridge, pulses, lasers, and torpedoes erupted together. The Aurora's battered hull lit up like a beacon of defiance. Against the odds, the lone human ship struck once more, and, for the first time, the Sorath vessels truly trembled. The Aurora's weapons blazed in unison, lighting up the void as its remaining torpedoes streaked toward the two surviving cruisers. Captain Reed Morgan leaned forward, voice low but urgent. "Keep up the pressure, don't let them regroup." Lieutenant Maya Flores reloaded the pulse cannons as best she could. "Almost out of ammo," she warned. "We've used more than half our reserves." Reed nodded. "Then make each shot count. Aim for their engines and weapons arrays." Ava Kim twisted the helm, guiding the Aurora in a tight loop around the nearest cruiser. The smaller ship's ion beams cut swaths through space, but the debris-strewn battlefield still offered cover. The Aurora dipped behind a shattered drone carrier, and Marcus Ellison's railguns found the cruiser's aft shields. Sparks danced as the shields collapsed, and the cruiser shuddered under the impact. Below decks, engineer Jake Larson felt the core temperature spike alarmingly. Sweat dripped down his face as he jerry-rigged an auxiliary coolant loop. "Reactor at 90%, he reported. "One more major hit and we might blow." On the bridge, Reed's gaze flicked to the hull integrity bar, now down to 10%. He steadied himself. "We're running out of time and space. Nina, any status on the injured?" In medbay, Nurse Nina Patel answered over the comm. "We've treated 2 fractures and 1 burn victim. They're stable, but we'll need more. Supplies if this drags on." Reed's jaw set. Understood. Everyone brace for heavy return fire. He activated the external speaker. "This is Captain Morgan. Aurora will not surrender. We fight for every corner of human space. Stand. Ready." As the Aurora emerged from cover, both Sorath cruisers turned their full firepower on her. The hull groaned, alarms shrieked, and red lights flashed. Maya yelled, "Shields are gone!" Hull plating peeled away under the concentrated barrage. Reed's heart pounded. "Evasive maneuver Theta." Ava threw the ship into a desperate spiral, dodging one volley but catching another. The Aurora lurched violently, consoles sparked, and crew members were thrown against bulkheads. In that split second of chaos, Reed seized his opportunity. He slammed his hand on the warhead control panel. Main cannon. Charged to maximum. The crew looked at him in disbelief, but none hesitated. They were ready. As the Sorath cruisers reloaded, the Aurora flared with renewed energy. A roaring beam shot from its bow, striking the nearest cruiser's bridge and sending shockwaves through the fleet's command network. The targeted cruiser spun off like a dying comet, its destruction echoing across the silent battlefield. The second cruiser faltered, its weapons flickering. Reed allowed himself a small, fierce smile. "Now, Marcus, finish the job." Marcus unleashed the last railgun round. It tore through the cruiser's core, and it too exploded in a blossom of light. The Sorath dreadnought, momentarily leaderless, drifted alone among the wreckage. For an instant, the Aurora drifted too, alive but broken, her systems screaming for repair. Around her lay the ruined armada, proof that one stubborn ship and its crew could defy any odds. The Aurora floated amid the husks of Sorath warships, its once sleek hull scarred by countless impacts. Captain Reed Morgan remained on the bridge, gaze fixed on the drifting dreadnought before them. That massive ship, though damaged, still loomed as a threat. Its engines burned dimly, and unmanned turrets scanned for survivors. Reed knew this. Final act would demand everything the crew had left. Below decks, Engineer Jake Larson and Lieutenant Suresh Patel worked side by side in engineering. Steam hissed from fractured conduits as they patched coolant lines and rerouted power. Jake's arms ached from tightening bolts that threatened to snap under pressure. "We've got 10 minutes before the hull gives," Jake warned. "After that, life support and engines go offline," Suresh nodded. "Then make it count when we're ready." He opened a sealed panel to isolate critical systems, restoring minimal power to the main cannon. Jake glanced at the glowing reactor core. "Cross your fingers," he muttered. On the bridge, Lieutenant Maya Flores reviewed the tactical display. Only one target remained, the crippled dreadnought. Its shields were near collapse, but its armor still bristled with heavy turrets. "They've got an active shield generator in Section Alpha," she reported. "If we hit that, their defenses will fall." Reed took a slow breath. "Agreed. Marcus, load torpedoes. Maya, aim for Alpha. Ava, position us at optimal firing range. 800 meters. Ava Kim's hands flew over the controls. The Aurora inched forward, thrusters sputtering as they fought to maintain course. Each movement rattled the ship. The crew held on, bracing against shudders and groans. In medbay, Nurse Nina Patel readied her supplies, preparing for the injured who might return, or the wounded who might be carried to her. She placed bandages and stimulants at the ready, her face set in calm determination. On the bridge, the final approach began. Reed watched, the dreadnought's turret swivel. One beam found the Aurora's forward hull, burning through a meter of steel before sparking out. The ship slid sideways, alarms screaming. He held firm. "Stand by weapons." Marcus Ellison's voice was steady despite the tension. "Torpedoes armed, ready on your mark." Maya's fingers danced across her console. "Target locked on Alpha generator, bearing 210. Reed nodded. "Fire torpedoes." 2 torpedoes slipped from the launch tubes, leaving trails of ionized propellant. They sped through the void, striking the dreadnought's flank in perfect synchrony. The explosions rocked the enemy vessel, and its shields flickered, then extinguished. "Shields are down," Maya exclaimed. "We've got a window." Reed seized the moment. "Main cannon, charge and fire." The Aurora's last reactor reserves funneled into the main cannon. A searing bolt erupted, slicing through the dreadnought's midsection. In that instant, the massive ship fractured, its bow and stern drifting apart in a cascade of fire and twisted metal. Silence followed the blast, an eerie calm broken only by the hum of the Aurora's wounded systems. Outside the viewport, the remnants of the Sorath fleet lay scattered like fallen giants. Humanity's lone ship had prevailed. Reed allowed himself a weary smile. "All stations report." Maya's voice softened. "All Sorath vessels are destroyed or incapacitated. No incoming fire." Ava exhaled. "We're drifting, but engines still respond to minor inputs." Jake's voice crackled over the comm. "Hull holding at 8%. Life support at minimum, but stable." Nina spoke quietly from medbay. "No new casualties. Everyone accounted for." A hush fell over the bridge as the crew absorbed their victory. They had faced an entire armada and lived. Reed drew in a steadying breath. "Set course for Earth orbit," he ordered. "We need repairs, and we need to tell them what happened here." Ava engaged the engines. The Aurora shuddered, then glided toward the distant glow of Earth. As they slipped into the current of stars, Reed looked at his crew, exhausted faces alight with triumph. The impossible had been done. In the silence, Reed whispered, "They challenged humanity to battle. One ship proved them wrong, and always he knew they would remember this day as proof that courage and unity could rewrite the stars themselves." The Aurora coasted toward Earth, its battered hull glowing dimly under emergency lights. Captain Reed Morgan remained on the bridge, eyes on the starfield ahead. Though victory had been won, the journey home was fraught with uncertainty. The crew moved with measured steps, each aware that their ship was still dangerously wounded. Lieutenant Maya Flores checked the comm channels. "Earth Command replies," she announced. "They're requesting our coordinates and status report." Reed nodded. "Patch us through." On the main screen, Admiral Lang's stern face appeared. His uniform was crisp, but his eyes shone with relief. "Captain Morgan, you've done the impossible. Report your ship's condition and crew status." Reed straightened. "Admiral, we stand with 20 healthy crew and 4 minor injuries. The Aurora's hull integrity is at 8%. Life support at critical levels, but engines and comms are functional. We request immediate towing and repairs." The Admiral's eyes flicked to the drifting wreckage behind them. "Understood. A repair convoy is en route. Your testimony will reshape Earth's defense strategy. Prepare to debrief upon arrival." Reed inclined his head. "Thank you, sir. Aurora out." The screen went dark. Maya exhaled. "They'll meet us in 2 days." Reed allowed himself a small smile. 2 days. We can manage." Below decks, Engineer Jake Larson and Lieutenant Suresh Patel continued their delicate work. Steam hissed as they sealed minor breaches. Jake glanced at Suresh. "We've bought them time, but there's no fixing Section D without dry dock." Suresh tapped the panel. "We'll hold until the convoy arrives. Then we can make real repairs." In medbay, Nurse Nina Patel checked her injured patients. She offered water and quiet words. "You'll be fine," she told Lieutenant John Ortiz, who had a bruised rib. He gave her a weak thumbs up. Outside, the corridors were almost silent, only the hum of emergency bulkheads and distant clanks of repair teams. On the bridge, Ava Kim adjusted the ship's course for the tow rendezvous. "I've charted the safest path," she reported. "Minimal debris, but it's slow going." Reed placed a hand on her shoulder. "Good work. Rest when you can." Ava nodded, eyes tired but bright. "Yes, Captain." They drifted in silence for a few minutes. Then Reed spoke softly. "We did more than fight a battle. We showed unity, Earth's people working together." Maya looked up. "I'll prepare the debrief report. They'll need every detail of our tactics." Reed turned to the viewport. The blue glow of Earth grew brighter. "When they hear our story, no one will doubt humanity's resolve again." As the Aurora approached the rendezvous point, distant sparkles marked the incoming repair convoy. Cranes and tugs moved among the wrecks, preparing to secure the ship. Reed felt hope swell in his chest. Against all odds, one small crew had changed the course of an interstellar war. He straightened his uniform jacket and returned to his command chair. "Let's bring her home." The crew around him smiled through exhaustion. In that quiet moment, they knew their struggle had forged a new dawn for all humanity, and as the Aurora slipped into the convoy's embrace, they carried with them a message that would echo through every human world. One ship, and its brave crew, could defy any challenge the stars might hold. The Aurora slid gently alongside, the massive repair tug, its battered hull lashed with heavy cables. Captain Reed Morgan watched as engineers in exosuits boarded his ship, their tools clanking as they began urgent repairs. The airlock hissed, and Lieutenant Suresh Patel stepped onto the deck, face smeared with grease but eyes bright with relief. Below decks, Engineer Jake Larson high-fived his fellow technician as coolant lines were replaced, and hull plates welded over breaches. "We did it," Jake murmured, voice thick with pride. "She's going to live." On the bridge, Lieutenant Maya Flores prepared her final report. Her fingers flew over the console as she summarized tactics, shield usage, and weapon yields. Each data point underscored a simple truth. Unity and daring had won the day. Nurse Nina Patel moved among the crew, checking vital signs and offering water. She paused at Marcus Ellison's station. "Feeling better?" she asked. Marcus gave a tired grin. "Never felt stronger. Ready for our next challenge." Outside the viewport, the distant blue globe of Earth shone brighter with each passing moment. Soon the Aurora would return to her home port, where crowds would gather to honor the crew that had stood alone against an empire. Reed took a deep breath and sent a final message to Admiral Lang. "Captain Morgan to Earth Command. The Aurora and her crew are ready for full debrief. Humanity has proven its mettle. We stand prepared to defend every star we call home." He turned to his bridge team. "You've all been remarkable. Rest now. You've earned it." Ava Kim exhaled with a relieved laugh. "I thought I'd have. To steer us straight into the sun." Reed chuckled. "Next time, pick a prettier target." As the repair tug's engines rumbled, pulling the Aurora toward Earth's atmosphere, Reed reflected on their journey. What began as a single ship's defiance had become a symbol of human courage. Across countless worlds, people would hear of this battle and know that even the smallest crew, armed with determination and hope, could reshape the galaxy. In the quiet that followed, the crew of the Aurora shared smiles, memories of near misses and unspoken bonds forged in fire. They had challenged fate, and fate had bowed to their will. And so, as the blue planet rose before them, Captain Reed Morgan whispered to himself, "We came alone. We stand united, and the stars will never forget what one small ship can do."